Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I will show you how to crochet the Vintage Granny Bonnet. This is a really beautiful and simple little project you can make for a new arrival that you may know. And it is simply 2 granny squares seamed together on 2 sides. And then I've added a pretty scalloped edge and then simply woven some satin ribbon. So it kind of looks like this when the child wears it. For this project, you'll need a 3.75 millimeter F crochet hook. And then the yarn I used is Lion Brand's Bonbons. They are these cute little tiny skeins of yarn, and they come in a multi-pack. They're very affordable, and as you can see, they're pretty small, and they're great for small projects like this where you're using lots of color and you don't want to buy a whole lot of yarn if you're just doing 1 or 2 rounds of a color. I used, they come in different colors. There's some metallics, some holiday colors, some neons. I used the Nature set, and I didn't use every single color, but I used most of them. I used this light purple, dark purple, this like bright pink color, the green, and then like a pale yellow. There's also like a beige and a dark brown, and I think an off-white. So I used that to do the granny square part of this project. You'll also need this is, as you can see, it's the yarn, it's a little finer, so that's why I used the F hook. This is the recommended hook size for this particular yarn. And so I used a smaller tapestry needle to weave in the ends, and then I used this large tapestry needle to weave in this ribbon. You'll also need a pair of scissors, and again, this is just some satin ribbon I had on hand. It's 3 millimeters wide. It's pretty narrow. Just use whatever you have on hand. I also wanted to talk about the safety of, a lot of people use bonnets and things for photo props. And whenever you put a bonnet on a baby or a child, just make sure they're under supervision anytime you have this kind of tie. And that goes for any kind of like an ear flap hat, anything you tie under the chin, just make sure they're under supervision with those. So I just wanted to put that out there for the safety. And also, when you're measuring, you can make this bonnet as large or as small as you'd like it to be. You can make it really, really tiny for a preemie, or you can make it large for a toddler. Just simply work more or less rounds. And this is roughly, this bonnet is roughly, each square is about half the size of the circumference of the head, because it will be going on the head like so. You want it to wrap from the back to the front and have their face showing. But it's roughly half the size of the circumference, each square's width, give or take. So you can really just make this as large or as small as you would like it to be. So let's get started. To make the basic granny square part of our bonnet, we're going to work each round in a different color. Now I'm going to show you how to make the one shown here, but you can make yours in any stripe sequence you like. And you can just choose 2 colors. You can choose more colors than I've chosen. So I'm going to make my 2 granny squares for the bonnet mirror one another. So I'm going to start with the green in the center here. So I have my cotton yarn. So to begin our granny square, this is just a classic granny square that we're making. We're going to put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop. Reach in with your crochet hook. Bring up the loop and tighten. We're going to begin by chaining 4. To make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Insert the hook in the chain farthest from the hook and bring up a loop. Bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. We now have the ring that we're going to be working the stitches into. To begin round 1, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to work 3 double crochets and then chain 1 into the center of the ring. To make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. So that's a double crochet, so we're going to do 3 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Then chain 1. Then we're just going to repeat that again. So 3 double crochets, chain 1. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. We can push that aside if you need to. Then we're going to do that again. 3 double crochets, chain 1. So 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, okay? We're going to finish up round 1 by working 2 double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1 and 2. Now the reason we're only working 2 for this last little grouping is because we had a chain 4 at the beginning, and that serves as one of these double crochets to finish up the round. Okay? So where you began, insert into that chain, insert your hook into the chain, and join with a slip stitch to close the round. So when you're finished, you should have, once you straighten it out a little bit, you should have like a little plus sign, okay? So our next round, we've switched colors. I did mine in this kind of pale yellow. So what you want to do is cut the yarn, go ahead and fasten off in the green, just like that. Get everything straightened up. So now we have, like I said, a little plus sign, and once we do the next round, this will become more defined as we work. But what you want to do is tie your yarn into any of these corners that you've made. Okay, so let's get the next color. It doesn't matter which corner. So what we're doing here essentially is working groups of 3 double crochets separated by a chain 1. So each of these groupings of 3 double crochets is one of our we working these stitches in between these groupings. Okay, so where you created one of these groupings separated by the chain 1, go ahead and join the new yarn. Just tie that right on. And before we begin round 2, I'm going to show you how to deal with these ends that we're creating. Whenever you're dealing with a project with lots of colors, it's a good idea to weave the ends in as you go along. Now, this first end we had, I held it along the edges as I worked, and that weaved that first end in. So you can go ahead and give that a pull and trim. And that first end is woven in now. This end, we'll weave it in as we work the next round. And we also have a yellow end too. So you can just weave these in as you go around. Now I tied it into any corner. You can tie yours in closer if you want. I like to space mine out just to give these ends a little bit of space so it doesn't look too lumpy, but that's just a personal preference. So go ahead and reinsert your hook into that same space where you tied the yarn in and bring up a loop. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to work, granny squares are a combination of corners and sides. So for round 2, it's just corners. You can see the yellow is corner, 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 and corner. Okay, so we're going to do that. Now each corner of our granny square is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. And then the next round we'll learn how to do sides. Okay, So we did chain 3. That counts as one of the double crochets. So go ahead and make 2 more double crochets to make that first grouping. So 1 and 2. Okay, again, we're making a corner, so in the same space, we're going to chain 1 and then work 3 double crochets in the same space. So 1, 2, and 3. Doesn't look like much now, but we now have our first corner, okay? So chain 1, and then we're going to skip this grouping of 3 double crochets and go to the next space, the chain 1 space from the previous round. Again, we're weaving these ends in as we go along, okay? So 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets to make the next corner. So that's 1, 2, and 3, chain 1. You need to push things over a little bit, that's okay too. In the same space, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we have our next corner. It's starting to shape up a tiny bit. So to finish this round, we're just going to keep going around to the next corner. So we're going to skip this next grouping and do the next corner. And see this end? I'm going to incorporate this end. Just hold it along the edge to get that end woven in. Makes things so much easier at the end when you don't have to weave all those ends in. So our next corner is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So I've just made 2, then 3, chain 1, then 1, 2, and 3. Okay, chain 1, and then the next corner. This is our last corner that we'll be working. So we're going to skip these next grouping of 3 double crochets and work the last corner. So 3 double crochets, same way we've been doing the other corners. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so it's starting to look a little bit more like a granny square. So we can go ahead and join where we began, that first stitch we made, rather that first chain. Okay, so we just joined with a slip stitch to close the round. We're going to switch colors again. So you can just cut the yarn, go ahead and fasten off. Because I'm mirroring my granny squares, the next color is this lavender. So the next round, we're going to learn how to do sides. Granny squares, again, are made of corners and sides. So if we look at our completed square, you can see we just completed this yellow, which was side, 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 side. Now the next round is how you'll do the rest of the rounds for the entire square. You're going to do a corner, and then a side, and then a corner, and then a side. And then if we look at the dark purple round, we have a corner, side, side, corner. And then the pink round, corner, side, side, side. So each round you make of your granny square, you'll be adding an extra side to each side of your square. So you can see the lavender has one side, the The dark purple has 2 sides. The hot pink color has 3 sides. The green again has 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Okay? So once you learn how to do the corner and sides, you'll be able to make your granny square as big or as small as you'd like it to be. So I'm going to set this aside. So we're going to do this the same way we did it before. We have some ends, and it's totally up to you, but I like to trim mine as I go along. It just makes for, you don't have all these little ends hanging out when you're trying to work. If you want to just trim them all at the end when you're finished, feel free to do that too. I like to trim mine as I go along. It's just nice and neat as you're working. Okay, so let's take our little square that we're making, and you can pick any corner you want in between where we made our corners and tie the new yarn right into any of those corners. Doesn't matter which one. So go ahead and insert your hook, bring the new yarn through, and just tie it right on. Now, there are lots of ways to join yarn. This is how I like to do it when I'm making a multicolor granny square. If you have a preferred method that you like to do, definitely do that if you have a way you prefer. So there's lots of ways to do it. This is the way I like to do it, okay? So we've tied the new yarn on, reinsert the hook back into the same area, and bring up a loop. Then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Because we're at a corner, we're going to begin by making a corner, okay? So again, our corners are 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. This chain counts as our first double crochet. So we're going to make 2 more. 1 and 2. Okay, I'm just holding this end as I go just to weave it in. Then we're going to chain 1, and then in the same space to make this corner 3 more double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now we are at a side. So this space right here, we're going to work our side. The sides are just a group of 3 double crochets. So we're going to chain 1, because that'll separate. Each time you make a grouping, they're separated by chain 1, if you've noticed what we've been doing. So the side, we're going to work 3 double crochet, chain 1. So 1, 2, and 3. Then chain 1, and now we're at a corner again. So the corner is 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, you can see we have our corner, side, and corner. So let's keep going all the way around. We've arrived at another side. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1. We're at a corner again. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and whoops, okay, 3, chain 1, then 3 more double crochet all in that same space to make that corner. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. Okay, we're at a side, so 3 double crochet. We've also come to another tail, so we'll just weave that in as we go along. Hold that along the edge. So 1, 2, and 3. So let's look at our work. It looks very, very much like a square now. Okay, chain 1, we're at another corner. Just get that end in there. So the corner is 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so let's finish up our square. We have one more side. We can again hold this tail in there to get that woven in. Chain 1, and just finish up that side by working 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. So our third round, our lavender round, is completed. So I'm just going to insert the hook where we began this round to join with a slip stitch to close the round. Okay, so let's fasten off the yarn and we'll look at what we've done. Okay, we can go ahead and fasten off with our hook. Everything kind of straightened out a little bit. And we can go ahead and trim the tails that we've made, incorporated into the project. Go ahead and trim those. This tail you can leave, you'll weave that in the next round. So what we're going to do to continue is to keep working in our color sequence. The next round would be dark purple, pink, green, and so forth. So what you would do for the next round is the same thing. You would just tie it into the corner like we've done for the previous rounds. And this round would have 2 sides. The next round would have 3 sides. Okay? So let's set this aside for a minute. And I'm going to show you. So this is our completed, this is just a basic granny square that we've completed. We'll be seaming the 2 granny squares together here and here to complete the bonnet. So what I want to do is to put a single crochet edge around this granny square. That will give it a more finished look, and it also helps to create a nice, neat, even seam. So we're going to go ahead and add a single crochet edge to that. So we're going to go ahead and put a single crochet edge on our square. So the next color in our sequence is this darker purple color. So what we're going to do is work a single crochet in each stitch and space all the way around. And to work the corners so we don't have any buckling, we're going to work 3 single crochets in each corner. Okay, so we're going to join the yarn the same way we've been doing all along, making your granny square into the corner. We'll begin in one of the corners, bring the new yarn through, and just tie it right on. Just like that, right into the space. We just tied it right on, just like we've been doing, and we can weave this in as we go along as well, this tail. So we're going to bring up a loop and chain 2. 1, 2, okay? Then this counts as our first single crochet. So again, I said we're going to work 3 single crochets in each corner. This is going to count as 1. So make 2 more. Insert the hook into the space, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Okay, we'll make 1 more, just like that, okay? Next, we'll work a single crochet into this first stitch that you come to on your square. Work it into the next stitch on your square. Work it into the next space of your square. We're just going to do this all the way across. Work a single crochet in each stitch and each space. So whatever you come to next, just work it into that area. So stitch, stitch, work it into the space. All the way around our square. Okay, now you can look and see what we've done so far. Looks very nice and neat. Okay, so we're just going to keep doing that all the way around. We're going to do this together till we get to that first corner, and then I'll continue on and we'll meet up at the end of our round. Okay, so again, just keep working it into the stitches that you come to, and then when you come to a space, just work a single crochet right into the space. Okay, so our end has been incorporated enough. We can kind of leave that be. Okay, we're just working this all the way around our square. Okay, now you can look back and it looks nice and neat again. Now if you chose a thicker yarn and a larger hook, this granny square you can make pretty quickly. In the winter months you can make this in a wool, soft merino wool or something snuggly for a baby that would be nice and cozy. In the summer you can make a cotton bonnet. So it's really up to you depending on the season. Okay, so we have come to the very last stitch and we've arrived at a corner. So I'm just going to work 3 single crochets right into that corner just to help make that turn so it doesn't buckle up. Okay, so 3 single crochets in that corner. Everything's nice and straight, nice and flat. And we're just going to continue around, working in the stitches and the spaces. Single crochets in each one. Okay, so we're going to continue going all the way around, and then when we get to the end of this, towards the end of this round, we'll rejoin again and I'll show you how to finish it. So I'm just coming to the end of the round here, and again we just worked a single crochet in each stitch and space around our granny square, and I'm just finishing off in that last little spot. Okay, so then where we began, you can insert your hook, join with a slip stitch to close the round, just like we've been doing. We have our border on here, and you can just fasten that off with a pair of scissors. Okay, and then you can just fasten off with your hook. So we can look at our border here that we've made. It's nice and neat. Now I wanted to mention too, get everything straightened out. It gives a nice clean edge on our square. If you want it to blend more, just work it in the color that you did the previous round, and it'll just look the same as your granny square looked before we put this round on, but just with a sturdier edge. Okay, so once you're finished doing this 2 times, so we need 2 squares to look the same, we're ready to seam them together. So once you have your 2 granny squares completed with the purple edging and everything, you're going to want to weave in all the ends of your squares. Now I went ahead and trimmed my tails that I had woven in as I went along, but I still have this one to do. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. So all you're going to do is take your tapestry needle and just thread it, and then flip your granny square over to the back. Now because this is purple yarn, we're going to just weave it into the purple area. If we wove it into a different color, it would show, so we want it to blend. So we're just going to go in one direction and then come back in the other direction with our tapestry needle. And then you can take your scissors and trim. Okay, so now we have 2 completely finished granny squares. So what we're going to do now is we're going to seam them to create the bonnet shape. So this is the front side of the granny square, the side that faced us as we worked our rounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the front sides facing each other, so that the wrong sides or the backward side is facing out on both sides. So what we're going to be doing to seam this bonnet is we're going to do a slip stitch seam, and I'll show you how to do that. You can also take a tapestry needle and simply sew it together if you prefer. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the same color as this edge so our seam blends and looks nice and neat. So we're simply going to sandwich them together, and then we're going to start from this bottom right corner, and we're going to go up, over, and across and finish at this top left corner. We're only seaming this and this. Okay, so let's come down to this corner here, and we're going to insert our hook into this bottom right stitch. I wanted to point out also, when you insert your hook into the bottom and top layers, you should have 2 loops on your hook for the bottom part of your granny square sandwich and 2 loops from this top layer. So then just take the same purple yarn that you did your edging with, and we're just going to tie it right on. Just bring the new yarn through, just like that, and then just go ahead and tie it on. Again, we're going to do the slip stitch seam. You can do a single crochet seam also, but because this is going to be worn on the head, I want it to be a little bit flatter. The single crochet seam makes kind of a rib as you go along. So this tail here we can also weave in as we go along. So all you're going to do is simply work a single crochet into, a slip stitch into each stitch all the way around, incorporating both layers. So we're going to hold this tail along here and then reinsert your hook back where we started and bring up a loop. Now, go ahead and chain 1. Now insert your hook into the first stitch into the top layer. See how I have 2 loops on my hook. Insert your hook into the bottom layer. Again, 2 loops are on my hook. Get that tail there. Wrap yarn around hook and bring up a loop. So you should have 2 loops on your hook. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And you've just done your first slip stitch seam. Okay, so insert it into the next stitch. Insert it into the next stitch of the bottom layer. Incorporate that tail. Bring up a loop. Bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Okay, so we're just going to do this all the way across. Again, keep incorporating that tail so you don't have to deal with it later. And then bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Insert into the top stitch. Insert it to the stitch of the next layer. Bring up a loop. Bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Okay? So I just wanted to take a moment and show you what our seam looks like. Looks nice and neat. So I'm going to continue doing this across, and then when I get to this first corner and we turn to go the other direction, we'll meet up again in a moment. So I'm just rounding this corner here, and we're just working a slip stitch seam into each one of these stitches too. If you remember, when we did our purple edge around our granny square, we worked 3 into the corner. So because we did that, it won't pucker up for us when we seam it. So we're just coming around this corner here. And I'm going to keep going. So we went across here, and then we're going to come down. So our bonnet will be seamed. So I'm going to continue down here, and then we'll rejoin towards the end to fasten off. So I've come up to the end here of our seam. I'm just going to put one more in there just to finish it off. Okay, so we've seamed from the bottom right corner up over to the upper left corner. I'm just going to cut the yarn and go ahead and fasten that off. We can weave this tail in also. And again, our bonnet is still inside out. So I'm just going to thread the tapestry needle and then go ahead and weave that tail into the purple area only because it's a piece of purple yarn. Okay, so you're going to come in this direction with your needle and then bring it through in the other direction. Okay, so now we can have the big reveal and turn our bonnet right side out and take a look at it. So you just want to get, if you have a little tail that you need to trim, that's okay. When you have a multicolor project, there's lots of tails and sometimes they pop out. Just give them a little trim. So let's get our seam nice and neat. Okay, so it's looking very much like a bonnet at this point. Okay, so you can kind of see how it'll be worn. Now, if you want to leave it as is and put the drawstring in now, you may. I'm going to show you how to put a pretty scalloped edge on it. Okay, so it'll give it a little bit of a little something extra. We're going to use the pink yarn to put the scallop on, and we'll be working the scallop across, straight across the top here. So what we're going to do is we can kind of push that corner in if we need to, but we want to get everything nice and flat. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook into, so this is the top when you wear the bonnet, or when the baby wears the bonnet. It's a little small for us, but when the baby wears the bonnet, this is going to be the edge that kind of frames their face. So if you flip it over, you'll have that straight edge, okay? So we're going to be working from right to left, okay? So grab your pink, because pink in our sequence, after dark purple comes pink. So go ahead and in the corner here, you're going to insert your hook. Again, we're working right to left. And then we're just going to tie the pink yarn right on. And then I'm going to show you how to do a super easy little scalloped edge for the top. So go ahead and just tie that pink on. Okay, now reinsert your hook back into the stitch where we began. And you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. This is going to count as our first double crochet of our scallop. So in the same stitch, work 2 double crochet, one and 2. So our scallops are just 3 double crochets. That will kind of mimic what we've been doing in the granny square. Okay, in the next stitch, work a slip stitch, just like that. So I'll give a nice rounded appearance. And then we're going to skip the next stitch, and in the stitch after that, work 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, and 3. In the next stitch, work a slip stitch. Skip the next stitch. In the stitch after that, work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Next stitch, work a slip stitch. Okay, I want to just show you what we have so far. Our little scallops look very pretty. Okay, so we just worked a slip stitch. So skip the next stitch, and then in the next stitch, work 3 double crochet. So we're just going to repeat this sequence all the way across with our 3 double crochet, slip stitch into the next stitch, skip the next stitch. We're going to do that all the way across. Okay, so I just worked 3 double crochet. In the next stitch, work a slip stitch, skip the next stitch. In the next stitch, work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Slip stitch into the next stitch, skip the next stitch, work 3 double crochet in that next stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now let's look at what we have. We have a beautiful scalloped edge so far on our bonnet. It's very vintage looking and very pretty and bright. A really nice gift for a new baby. Okay, so we work 3 double crochet. In the next stitch, work a slip stitch, skip the next stitch, work 3 double crochet in the next stitch. So I am going to continue with this scallop sequence all the way across the top of our bonnet, and then when we get towards the end, we can rejoin. So again, just take my hook out for a moment. Again, we're working a little scallop all the way across. So when the baby wears the bonnet, this little scallop will frame the face. Okay, so I'm going to keep going and we can rejoin towards the end here. So I worked the very last group of 3 double crochets. So to finish off our scallop, to give it a rounded appearance like the rest of them, in the same stitch, this is just for the last grouping, you're going to also work a slip stitch in the same stitch to finish that off. You can see it now has a more rounded appearance. Okay, so our little scallop is finished, our little edging. So you can just break the yarn and then go ahead and fasten that off. So our bonnet looks very, very pretty. And what we want to do next is locate any ends that you may have. So I have a pink end where I began the scallop and where I left off. So I'm going to go ahead and weave those in right into the pink areas only. Send your tapestry needle through there. And then you can trim with your scissors. And then there is another end that you can weave in. So we can go ahead and, now again, when you weave in your ends, make sure you're working on the back side or the wrong side, whatever you call it, whatever you like to call it. Okay, so just go one direction and the other direction. Okay. Okay, so the main part of our bonnet is complete. So now we're going to grab some ribbon and add the little tie string to our bonnet. Get our little yarn pieces out of the way. We're going to just add the little tie string and then we'll be finished. So we're ready to add the little drawstring. Now before we continue, I want to mention that whenever you put something on a baby or a little person that requires you to tie something, whether it be a bonnet or an ear flap hat, make sure they're under supervision because it is tied and it is a string around, that goes under their chin. So any kind of bonnet or ear flap hat or anything that ties under the chin, you want to be extra careful and have them under supervision. A lot of people just use bonnets as photo props for baby pictures and such. So just use extreme care and supervision with any kind of tie string. Okay, so what I want to do next is I have here some satin ribbon. This is just some really narrow 3mm wide satin ribbon. I'm just using, it's just some bright pink that kind of matches that I had on hand. And then to make it easier, you can do this by hand. We're just going to be weaving it in and out of these spaces in between the granny, these little groupings here. You can do it by hand. I happen to have a very large tapestry needle. So I'm just going, without cutting yet, I'm just going to thread my tapestry needle, or if you want to do it by hand. And then beginning at this corner down here, come in from the back up to the front, like that. And then we're just going to be going over this cluster and under the next one. So over, under. I'm doing it in this lavender section, depending on what yarn you used or what colors. But one of the last granny square round that you worked before you did the edging is ideal. Okay, so over, under. And then when you come up to this corner, just kind of split it. We'll just pull this through. Okay, so now we're looking at the top view of our bonnet. So we just went under. So we're just going to go over that seam area and then just continue going over, under, all the way around till you get to the end. And then when you get to the corner, go down so that goes to the inside of the, whoops, and mine just fell off. So let's try that again. Okay, so over, under, and then back down. Okay, just pull that through. So we now have a string. Looks very pretty. Kind of looks a little stitchy because we went over and under. Kind of looks like the running stitch. So then just pull a little bit of yarn, ribbon, and then just pull it until you have enough ribbon to tie. Make sure it's not puckering up at all. And then just determine how long you want it to be. I'm going to make mine, this is about 10 inches or so. And then cut your ribbon at an angle to make it look finished. So our little bonnet is complete. And then when the baby wears it, you can just tie it like that. And again, use care and supervision with any of these tie projects. So that is how you crochet the Vintage Granny Bonnet. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again.